So I've done a little bit of cleaning off camera of the case. I don't know if you remember or not, there was glue residue, or not really glue residue, some kind of tape residue that was on the plastic here that actually cleaned off fairly easily. There's little bits of it left here on the front that I'm going to go ahead and remove, although it'll be difficult for you to see. How I removed it was actually pretty simple. And that was, I bought a box of these alcohol prep pads. It's the same thing they rub on your arm before they give you a shot kind of thing. And it's just a little cotton pad soaked in alcohol. It was pretty inexpensive for a box of them. And I just used it to gently scrub. The alcohol seemed to break the glue loose, or the glue on the, that I believe was tape residue. And it was just kind of just let the alcohol soak in for a second. It doesn't seem to be damaging the plastic at all. The plastic is pretty heavily textured, so that was really the challenge on this, was getting down into that texture to get the little bits of white out. It was interesting that it lifted those little bits of white glue residue back up out, and then they become loose and they floated around, and they'd appear in other places, and I'd think I'd have to wipe them off, with a little alcohol pad, and they just move around on their own. It's looking like I've probably got that little bit of glue residue. No, I can still see some here. It's lightening up. At this point, what it's got is down inside of the textured surface. It's getting better as I rub. This isn't affecting the textured surface at all. You wouldn't want to use like an acetone. It would melt the case, most likely. I thought about some of the Glue Gone, which is citrus-based, but again, I didn't know how the plastic could take it. I could have, I guess, done a test maybe inside of the case, but I just thought, I'll start with the alcohol. There's a little bit down there. The rest of these I can't tell if it's little bits of glue residue or fingerprints, and I won't know until I get the case cleaned. Anyhow, there's what I used to basically get all that tape residue off, and I'm happy it came off as easy as it did. I was really dreading that. So really, next I want to move on to the keycaps. They're pretty dirty. This may have actually seen more use than I thought it had initially, just because of how dirty these keycaps are. I've taken a picture of the layout. We talk about the layout here. Hopefully you can see that there's a line feed and a carriage return. They are separate keys. There's no enter key. It's literally independent line feed and carriage return. There's rub out and backspace. So rub out was an old teletype term where the head would move back and type over the previous character as a delete kind of thing to indicate the character had been deleted, because on printed paper you can't actually delete. So you'd rub it out and then start typing from there on. I'm very sure that what's called the lock here is not a caps lock in how most people are used to thinking about it. Caps lock on a modern keyboard locks the alpha characters into uppercase. Lock on an older keyboard like this is almost always locking the shift key down, and that means with the lock on, we're going to get the bracket, the exclamation point, the quote. We're going to get all the shifted characters, not just shifted alpha. There's of course a tab. It's an interesting location for the control key. Notice how small the shift keys are. I mean, all the keycaps are the same size. So this would be, now that I've actually sat in front of it, this would be a little bit difficult to type on. It's much more reminiscent of a teletype keyboard than an ASCII terminal keyboard, even though it's being used on an ASCII terminal. All the basic characters are there. There is a control, so control G is bell, control L, I think control M is carriage return, control L is line feed, and those two keys happen to live up here as well. There is an escape key and of course a tab. Break is most likely sending in control C. That's a pretty normal break character. Be the same as control C here. So most likely that sends a Control-C. It may actually be sending something else because there was other forms of break back in the the teletype days. So that's something I'd have to look at. The blank key, I'm guessing maybe it's an auto repeat, though I don't know that. But anyhow, where I'm at is I wanted to get the keycaps off, at least hopefully get the keycaps off, and kind of take a peek underneath. So we've got a keycap puller here. If you're going to pull keycaps, I recommend you find a keycap puller. This one's metal. It's pretty well made. It doesn't have like a plastic handle to get broke. And it just slides over the keycap, rotate it about 45 degrees, and these come off very easily, and it just pulls the keycap directly off. I can already see that that's a double injection molded. So the black part is injected and then the keycap around it. I have taken a photo of the layout previously. I'm going to capture all these in this little bag here. Yeah, these come off very easily. I'm pleased with that. I didn't want to have to wrestle to get these off. So this is going to be really exciting for you to watch as we pull off keycaps. We're getting a view down into the mechanism. It's not particularly dirty down in there. I'm pleased with that. I'm debating whether to remove the space bar or not. It probably comes off the same way. That was a little bit tighter. Very loose. I don't recognize the mechanism here. The spring is obviously inside of the body of the plunger. I mean, we do know it's almost guaranteed. Well, we know it's a membrane based on the connections we saw in the previous video. So some of these keys are really close together, making it kind of difficult to get the keycap puller down into place. This is a pretty gentle way to get keycaps off. It works pretty well. I've used it on all kinds of keyboards. I didn't even know these existed until I saw somebody else doing the keyboard teardown video, and I'm like, oh, that's such a great idea. And pretty quickly found, I don't remember if I found it on eBay or Amazon. It was a little, I want to say it was about $12 with shipping, which seems excessive. But you can see here, the value of it just working beautifully to remove these. It does work on larger keys like a normal shift key. It just gets sprung out quite a bit. But it does work. I'll come back to that one. Added issue here is the small amount of clearance from the keycap to the plastic case. These shafts have a lot of lateral movement in them, which kind of makes this a little bit interesting. And that sometimes the keycap moves up tight against the one next to it, and I can't get the little metal wire down in. But I mean, it's not a huge thing. Ooh, there's the first dead bug. So it was inevitable we'd have one. Yeah, definitely some kind of dead insect. There had to be one, because in a previous video I said there wasn't. So there's definitely dust and kind of grime down in there. Wherever this set, it wasn't a super dusty environment, especially considering the age of the thing. If this thing was manufactured in 1980, that makes it 41 years old. If this had set for 41 years in a normal environment, I would expect that to just be loaded with dust, and hair and that kind of stuff, and it's really not bad. So, can I get around that one? Trying to get some clearance here by removing some of these centered ones. It is they are molded keycaps, and that the angles change. So these slope forward, these kind of slope back. So it's got that kind of, you know, cup shape to it, which is a sign of a, you know, a more professional keyboard. I'm sure you could get used to typing on this. I think it was VTE-1 maybe in the series where I had found that article in Popular Electronics. Actually not an article, a new product release. It's all I've been able to find so far about this. That listed 450 kit, 600 assembled, and the $450 kit in $1979 was about $1,600 in 2021 dollars, which is insane. That much money, you know, for $400 back then, you could almost buy a computer. You know, a Tandy Model 1 was $700-ish, I think, at that period. It was just kind of crazy to me that as a kid that this, you know, was that expensive. It's just kind of crazy. You know, maybe the article's wrong. I don't know. Seeing how dirty that looks down in there, I don't want to scar the plastic up there. Don't want, you know, the wire here to kind of cut into the brown plastic. It's molded that same color brown all the way through. It's not like it's a painted finish, which is actually good because it helps hide scratches and that kind of stuff well. We have the backspace key. Come at it this way. If we can get this to hook. Let me take a look down into the space bar. I think it literally it's just literally sitting on. Oh, I thought it actually moved up off, but it didn't. No, it did slide up quite a bit and then stopped. And I don't want to force it. So I can clean it independent. Where's the Q-tips? Oh, here they are. Let me grab a couple Q-tips. See if I can clean some of that mess out of there. This is just alcohol. Can I get a hold of, you know, that's what's coming up out. I could get a fair chunk of that out with the Q-tips. I suspect I can get a fair chunk of that out with just a vacuum cleaner, but it is just dust. There's a bunch of hair there as well, so these are a little bit too wide to get between the keycaps. But you know, it's lifting a lot of yuck up out of there. Let me try a little something here. Let's flatten the Q-tip out a bit. Let's see if that does a better job getting in between them, and it does. So this would just be very tedious to do here. I really do want that nice and cleaned out in there. All right, we'll have to start with a vacuum. It's really heavy up here. Oh no, those are actually gray. They're a different color mechanism. They have a gray body versus the black body. I'm not sure why. The tensions don't feel different. These don't look to be independent, or maybe they are independent. I think the whole thing, you know, based on the rocking I see, these are independent key mechanisms. I'm not sure how they're hooked together. I do see a metal backing plate, at least I think it's metal back in there. It might be gray plastic. It looks like it's metallic over here. It looks like it's gray plastic over there, so I don't know. Hopefully I haven't lost any keycaps. These will get a good soak in hot soapy water. A simple scrub down and be dried. I'm debating whether to go ahead and just remove the entire keyboard mechanism, because with it removed, no, now that I look down in there, the mechanism itself is pretty, it's hard to say. Let me set this aside. I'm so afraid of damaging that membrane. I've got to be really careful here. Let's spin this around. Now I can reach inside and unplug these. And that releases the top. Odd keyboard. Let me see if I got someplace I can set this out of the way. Or if I got room to set this. Want to wipe any little bits of leads or metal or anything off there. We can definitely see the inside of the keyboard there. Let me spin this around, and I think I'll put it this way, which should give you a decent view and me a decent view. Okay, there's not a ton of tension on those. They spin very easily. They feel like they're probably machine screws again. They are. So they're machine screws turning into brass inserts. So that's very nice. Actually now can see a bunch of construction screws. Boy, this keyboard is definitely oddball and interesting. That does seem to have released it. These are for. That feels very much like a self-tapper, and it is. I wonder what it did. They were used as part of mounting the keyboard without being driven down flush. Those are bizarre. I have no idea what those screws were for. But I think now I can lift this up out. Okay, there's what I was seeing inside was this double lip. So I will be able to clean this a little easier with it out. We can see the membrane. I need to be super careful with this. Set this aside. Get a better look. Okay, I see what it is. The metal stakes are the individual switch mechanisms. So the membrane looks to be in good shape. I don't see any delamination anyplace. Needs a bit of cleaning, But I can get in here now with some brushes. I've got some brushes and I can brush the inside of this out. We can look again at this to see if that can be released. It's a pretty standard space bar, it turns out. So the problem is it's just flexing the wire. Need to do is, I think, snap that wire out of there without breaking the tabs. And the issue here is this plastic is old enough, it's probably pretty brittle. No, that really doesn't want to lift up out of there. So I'm not going to get the space bar off without figuring out how to release the wires, and I really don't want to force them. I say that and then I get in here and pry a little bit. No, I will clean the space bar as part of the keyboard assembly. Yeah, it's just this phenolic backing that's pretty flexible. The membrane, the key switches punched through, and the heat stakes melted down to hold the keycaps in place. It's a very cheap keyboard. And of course the mechanisms are very tall. Looking further at these, I don't think, I can't tell whether these are, I guess they are independent keycaps, so I don't want to sit it down on those. Anyhow, I will clean this up off camera. There's no reason to bore you with me brushing this out. And of course I'll wash all the keycaps off camera. And we'll pick this video up when I'm back here in a second. We'll be doing reassembly.